After an emergency meeting at Sandringham, Britain's royal family has mapped out a plan for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. In a statement, Queen Elizabeth II has given her blessing for Prince Harry and his wife Meghan to go it alone, away from the intense scrutiny of British tabloids.
They have had enough of the racism from the British press and not enough support and respect from the royal family in that regard.
The couple announced they were stepping back from their royal roles on Instagram last week. With 8-month-old Archie, they'll split their time between the UK and Canada and plan to make their own money instead of relying on public funds. That means giving up the cash Harry receives from his father's Duchy of Cornwall estate. Last year, he and his brother William got $6.5 million from Prince Charles. Then there's the matter of security.
It goes into the millions when you're talking about a couple as high profile as them. They are targets. They're targets for the good people who just want to get close to them, and they're targets for the bad people who want to do some real harm to them.
To fund their lifestyles, Harry and Meghan are seeking to trademark the Sussex royal brand, which could allow them to profit from merchandise. And the decision to divide their time between the UK and North America could open a lot of doors.
They're going to have plenty of opportunities with 8-figure book deals, as well as creating documentaries for revenue streams, as well as endorsing various different products, being brand ambassadors, and of course being able to go on the speaking tour too. Everyone's going to want to hear from them.
People who are of mixed race like Meghan are the hottest thing right now in Hollywood, in the modeling world. People who are ethnically ambiguous. That's what people are looking for. That's what people are casting in commercials, on TV shows. And a mixed race couple like that is really what is going on in the world right now.
The Queen says senior members of the royal family will meet privately in the coming days to finalize the details of Harry and Meghan's move. What is certain is this is one family matter that's going to stay in the public eye. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to Dickie Arbiter in London. He's a royal commentator who served as the Queen's spokesman from 1988 to 2000. Welcome to Money Talks, Dickie. Now, this whole affair has really gripped Britain and large parts of the world. It's been hashtagged as Megxit, among other things. What do you make of this whole affair? Who do you sympathise with here?
Well, I sympathise with all parties, actually. There's been tremendous strain on the Duchess of Sussex. She's come from a different environment, a different way of life in the United States and Canada. She was an actor. And a free spirit able to vent her views about various global issues, about the environment, about global warming, about women's issues, women's empowerment. And all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, she married into the royal family in May 2018, and she is restricted by what she can say and what she can do. And for somebody who's been pretty vocal for most of their life, and even in her childhood she was vocal, that's a very difficult thing to suddenly find that your mouth is being zipped and you can't express an opinion. So I think there was that aspect to it. Also the aspect of being somewhat shackled, not being able to go where you want to, when you like, and always having to have somebody with you, a protection officer, to make sure that no harm comes to you. So it's a mixture of things. And I suppose the British media has had some hand in it. Yes, admittedly, the Sussexes did do some silly things last year. For example, flying on private jets when commercial carriers would have been much better instead of the carbon footprint. And they were heavily criticised for that. But having said all that, if you weigh it up in the less than 2 years that she's been a member of the royal family, I would say about 80% of the press that she's had has been very, very positive. It was positive up to the wedding, beyond the wedding, for their engagements right round the United Kingdom, for their tour of Southern Africa. There was just that little blip in the middle of last year, and also the blip surrounding the birth of Archie that went horribly wrong in terms of announcing that it all fell to pieces. So it's very unfortunate. I feel sorry for the Queen because she adores her grandson, and the fact that he's walked away from being a senior royal and mainstream royal engagements is a bit of a disappointment, and certainly a disappointment to Prince Philip, who adores his grandson. So I think both sides are suffering as a result of it. But at the same time, through that statement yesterday from the Queen at Sandringham, they've got to make the most of it. And there's a transition period now while the officials decide how they're going to implement Harry working not just as a private individual, Brand Sussex, but also as still a working member of the royal family.
Now, I think a lot of people have been intrigued by that last idea you mentioned, the idea of the couple becoming, quote, financially independent. How might they achieve that?
Well, it should be quite easy. Firstly, they've got to have good advice, because neither of them are commercially minded. Meghan probably slightly more than Harry, probably a lot more than Harry, but they've got to have good advice. And they could create brands, high-end merchandise that is affordable to the great wide public. And from that, they can not only live the sort of lifestyle that they're used to living, but they can also fund their foundation in that it can help on the humanitarian side, it can help women empowerment, it can help women's issues, it can help people who are disadvantaged. And I think that is their aim, to earn in order to pay back to society. Now, they've got a little bit of a problem at the moment. They registered Sussex Royal last year in the UK, which is registered and it is firm, copyrighted and what have you. They've registered with the World Intellectual Properties Organization to cover Australia, the United States, Canada. Well, it is registered in the United States. I think Canada is a mere formality. The big problem is the EU, because what's happened, while they've got this pending in the European Union, somebody else has also made an application to register Sussex Royal. So they're going to appeal against that. But it should be all systems go, and provided they've got the right advice, they should not only make money for themselves, but also make money for their foundation, which in turn will help a lot of charities and a lot of disadvantaged people.
Now, as I mentioned, you worked for the Queen for quite some time, more than a decade. How do you think this idea of the couple perhaps leveraging on their royal status and royal name, how do you think that will go down in the royal establishment at Buckingham Palace? Commercialising the brand, I guess. Well,
they're actually going to have to live with it. The Queen has sort of more or less rubber stamped the fact that they can go off and do what they want to do based up in Canada, and also perform a very useful role within the royal family. You've got to remember that the Queen appointed them youth ambassadors, the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, and that involves a lot of work throughout the Commonwealth, not just in Canada and the United Kingdom, but the other 51 nations. So they've got to roll up their sleeves and get on with that, because they accepted to do that and they can't let the Queen down. Harry's got the Invictus Games. He is the face of the Invictus Games. The next games are in May in The Hague, and they are important to disabled servicemen who've been injured in the course of duty, and they are very, very popular. Harry is the face of the Invictus Games, and because he is the face, they have no problem with sponsorship. If he backs off from it, will the Invictus Games survive? Probably will, but not in the same global form that it's running at the moment. And then they've both got their own individual charities within the United Kingdom. They want to be serviced as well by their royal patrons. How is that going to work out? There is some serious negotiation, there is some serious planning still to be done. And meanwhile, officials are discussing amongst themselves how best this is going to work for both Harry and Meghan.
Yes, as you say, very early days in this transition. Dickie Arbiter in London, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your analysis.